And also considering that the Iranians apparently, and this won't be confirmed anywhere, it won't be confirmed in Tehran, and it won't be confirmed in Moscow, the Iranians are not asking Russia that for help now, as they did not asking confirmed in Tehran, and it won't be confirmed in Moscow. The Iranians are not asking Russia directly for help now. And this won't be confirmed anywhere. It won't be confirmed in Tehran, and it won't be confirmed in Moscow. The Iranians are not asking Russia directly for help now, as they did not ask even before the start of this war. But of course, because there is...
So I had to play that more than once.
The leadership in Moscow and Beijing know they cannot allow that to happen. So obviously they are little coordinate on the go how the support to Iran is going to go on, depending on what moves in the battlefield. And there's an extra component, Anima, very, very important, which is not only the United States, as Foreign Minister Lavrov has been saying for the past 4 years, for that matter, non-agreement capable. They are non-diplomacy negotiating capable. And now this is clear, not only to Iran, but also to Russia, which means that this kabuki going on a peace deal of Ukraine, for all practical purposes, is also dead. It is a kabuki, and it's seen by the leadership in Moscow as a kabuki. So now we are in the brutal reality. To quote Hobbes, nasty, brutish, but not short.
And sit down at the negotiating table, because if this goes out of hand, goes out of whack, Russia will involve itself. Russia is not openly involved in protecting Iran, fulfilling ultimately Ezekiel 38. The prophecy for the day is Ezekiel 38. I got to go through that whole book. When God enters Israel, it's not talking about the kingdom of heaven. It's talking about now and this time. But everything got to calm down so that the chip can be, for the prophecy of the chip can be manifest. We sound like a broken record, but the MOTB. Look for the MOTB. Look for things settling down. Look for them to come at the negotiation table. And then hopefully in the next couple of months, they'll push 6 months or whatever. They'll push within 6 months, hopefully they'll push the doing away with the paper dollar. And then eventually, inside of months, I would think, to make everybody get a chip. And people are going to get a chip because they don't understand the scriptures. Christians are going to pursuant to Ezekiel, the scripture today. The chapter today, Ezekiel chapter 38. We got to go through that. Ezekiel 38, 2nd Ezra 15, 2nd Ezra 16. All the prophetic scriptures. Now, I'm going to say this. That shows you that the U.S. will back up when Russia and China gets involved. Militarily, they will back up. They will sit down. They will be ready to negotiate. And to show you that they're scared of Russia, is Ukraine is an ally of the U.S. How do we know that? How many billions and hundreds?
So Iran targeted the United States' CIA headquarters in Dubai and the UAE. Israeli Channel 15 came out and confirmed that. There's now a circulating report claiming that 6 senior CIA officers were killed in the UAE after precision strike hit a residence used by agency personnel in Dubai, with 2 others reportedly being injured. In the past 24 hours, if you can believe it, Iran has attacked directly or indirectly 15 different countries or their militaries, okay? They have attacked Israel, United States, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, Jordan, Iraq, Bahrain, Oman, Syria, Cyprus, France, Italy, and the United Kingdom, okay? Now, there's a little asterisk around the United Kingdom and the whole Cyprus thing, because actually the missiles, they launched 2 ballistic missiles this morning, reportedly, at Cyprus, which houses thousands of British troops. There's two UK military bases on Cyprus, as well as thousands of Israeli troops. In fact, Israelis are just like buying up the land left and right. It's basically becoming like, little St. James Island 2.0 for Israelis, Cyprus is. It's not even going to be a country anymore in a few years. It's just going to be swallowed into Israel. Okay, but that being said, I said put the asterisks around the United Kingdom Cyprus story because there was no reports of anything actually happening. There was just allegations that missiles were launched in the direction. But we have new information from Middle East Spectator, who is my trusted source, one of my go-to sources for following everything. I followed Middle East Spectator on all these conflicts, and by far and away out of the Telegram accounts, the fastest, the best, the most accurate, most insider information, ideologically coherent and whatnot. Middle East Spectator is the best, and they just reported.
Bro, the level just started. We're already getting overrun. I gotta take these guys out. Build this crossbow tower as fast as possible. I don't even think I have a choice.
Initial reports of an Iranian missile or drone strike at the Akrotiri Air Base in Cyprus, which houses British forces and aircraft. Now, this is absolutely huge. Obviously, Israel operates out of there. Obviously, the UK operates out of there. The UK has come out and admitted that they are party to this conflict. They said, we are participating. We are proud of the fact that we are participating, so on and so forth, right? Initial reports of an Iranian missile or drone strike at the Akrotiri Air Base in Cyprus, which houses British forces and aircraft. And I guess it would maybe give more of a reason for the recent reports we've been seeing from London, Berlin, and Paris that they're going to join in on the conflict for defensive purposes, of course, right? Now, what's so incredible about this whole thing is, like, Israel claims, like, oh, we're so big and strong because we achieved air superiority above Iran. And that's even disputed, but, like, who cares? Like, first of all, you achieved nothing. You literally blackmailed our politicians with Jeffrey Epstein, and you stole this shit. Okay? So, oh yeah, we have air superiority. Well, how about this? In 5 hours, Iran was able to close the airspaces in all these countries. And all these countries in the region. Dubai airport is closed. Abu Dhabi airport is closed. Doha airport is closed. Kuwait airport is closed. Bahrain airport is closed. Ben Gurion is closed. Okay, and all the airspaces are closed as well. We also saw today that Iran bombed an Emirati oil rig in the Persian Gulf with a Shahid drone. This is the first time that we have seen Iran launch these large-scale attacks on the oil and gas assets. Now, if Saudi Arabia joins the war tomorrow, which Trump is hinting at, it's going to be over. It's not just going to be Iran launching at these oil and gas assets, and Saudi Arabia knows that. I don't know why on earth they would decide to join this war, because it's not just going to be Iran. In fact, their biggest issue is going to be Yemen, because the last time Yemen was striking at those oil and gas fields in Saudi Arabia, they hit one of these oil fields, and global oil prices skyrocketed by 5%, and a sale is ending today. If you do
for a 4 to 5 day war against Iran, and he assumed that if the United States were to kill the Ayatollah Khomeini, that Iran would immediately want a ceasefire, and that Donald Trump would be able to declare a victory, and that war would not spread throughout Iran. Ceasefire offer. Donald Trump apparently Donald Trump is panicking as Iran has rejected his ceasefire offer. Donald Trump apparently only prepared for a 4 to 5 day war against Iran, and he assumed that if the United States were to kill the Ayatollah Khomeini, that Iran would immediately want a ceasefire, and that Donald Trump would be able to declare a victory, and that war would not spread throughout the region. Donald Trump was warned that his personal views that that's what would take place were wrong, and he was indeed wrong. hat tip to Ynet. They were the first to report, and they're based out of Israel, that Donald Trump is now begging Iran for a ceasefire, and Iran immediately rejected it and said when there will not be a ceasefire will be on our terms. And now one of the major issues the United States is facing is, will we be running out of munitions? Do we have the capabilities for a long-term war if this drags out for many, many months? And in addition, we've learned some horrific news this morning that a number of our soldiers, a number of U.S. service members, have indeed been killed in action during the war already. We've learned that there have been, so far, 3 U.S. service members killed in action. 5 have been seriously wounded so far during Operation Epic Fury, is what the Trump regime is calling it. We're referring to it at the Midas Touch Network as Operation Epstein Fury, or the Jeffrey Epstein War. The U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, announced the deaths of these 3 U.S. service members. 5 are seriously wounded. We're following that. We're expecting, sadly, the number of deaths to increase. These casualties, as Open Source Intelligence Defender also notes, these casualties are likely the result of Iranian ballistic missiles and one-way attack drones that have been striking U.S. bases in Bahrain, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates, with some bases suffering much more serious damage than had been previously reported or announced by CENTCOM. Indeed, our government is giving false information, saying that the attacks have not been serious against our bases, only for us to learn later that they are indeed very, very serious, and now our service members have been killed, and Donald Trump has blood on his hands, and this whole regime in the United States has blood on their hands. Iranian's president, Masoud Pezeshkian, he is alive, and he's stating this morning on state-run television that the Interim Leadership Council is now operational and has assumed constitutional control of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Pezeshkian adds that we will continue the path of the leader with strength. Our armed forces are crushing the bases of enemies. No sign by Iran that they will be stopping their retaliatory actions against U.S. bases and U.S. interests within the Middle East anytime soon.
So I just want to play some of those clips. They're Shalom, Shalom, double honors to the elders, sing honors to the apostles of Great Millstone. And yeah, and like-minded camps. Yeah, I just wanted to get into that there. Those are some clips right there, some updates on the third woe. It's third woe. Revelation 11:14. The second woe has passed, the third woe is coming soon. God. The resort of the third woe. Revelation 9. In the KJV. King James Version, Revelation 9, verse 12. One woe is past, and behold, there come 2 woes hereafter. Anyway, jumping down to verse 16. And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000, and I heard the number of them. And thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them having breastplates of fire, describing the missiles, and of jacinth and brimstone. Down there, when you go into jacinth, that goes into a red-orange color. Jacinth is a stone. It could also be blue or purple. because fire could be also turned blue, purple, orange, reddish color. The term is used to describe the color of breastplates in a vision. Often interpreted as a fiery red or deep blue, purple color. Con. Brimstone is meaning sulfur. Sulfur signifies divine judgment, destruction, and intense punishment in the Bible, most notably in the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, Genesis 19:24. Associated with fire, it presents the absolute consuming wrath of the power Yahweh against sin, and is frequently used to depict the agony of hell, which is going to be here, the lake of fire, described in Revelation. I got Isaiah 34, I'm going to start at verse 8. For it is the day of the Lord's vengeance, and the year of recompense for the controversy of Zion. Let me go back to Revelation. Anyway, this is Revelation chapter 9, verse 16. And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000, and I heard the number of them. And thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them having breastplates of fire, and of jacinth and brimstone. And the heads of the horses were as heads of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone. Bodies were the third part of man killed. It's the thermonuclear missiles, if you don't know, by the fire and by the smoke and by the brimstone which issued out of their mouths. Yeah, their mouths, the missiles. So it's fine, so 19. And for the powers in their mouth and in their tails, and in their tails, for their tails were like unto serpents, and had heads, and with them they do hurt. Con. Yep, so that's what that's going into. Basically, the destruction. It's verse 20. And the rest of the men which were not killed by these plagues, yet repented not of the works of their hands. Yeah, there's a lot of people are gonna be killed by that destruction, the lake of fire. That's what the lake of fire is, by the way. It's just simply just the nuclear missiles destruction coming here. Anyway, moving on to this, that they should not worship devils and idols of gold and silver and brass and stone and of wood, which neither can see nor hear nor walk. Neither repent they of their murders, nor of their sorceries, nor of their fornication, nor of their thefts. Con, buddy. So that's what that's going into there, buddy. Now, anyway, going back to this one. Isaiah 34:9. And the streams thereof shall be turned into pitch, and the dust thereof shall turn into brimstone, and the land thereof shall burn in pitch. 10. It shall not be quenched night nor day, the smoke thereof shall go up forever, from generation to generation. Once again, describing the same thing in Revelation 9. It shall lie waste, none shall pass through it forever and ever. 11. But the cormorants and the bitterness shall possess it, the owl also and the raven shall dwell in it, and you shall stretch out upon it the line of confusion and the stones of emptiness. Yeah, once again, describing the destruction. So anyway, going back to those clips that I showed there, that I played there, that I showed there. It was just an update, a correction to, and also as well a correction to what I said earlier. And if you saw and actually paid attention in those clips there, because in my last video I said that Iran looks I was thinking Iran actually looked like it was gonna get dismantled, defeated, but actually now that I saw these other videos and what Tahar was saying there and that his video there that I showed, just took clips of it there, but that I showed there, certain highlights that I highlighted that I wanted to share there. It looks like Iran is actually holding its own. Iran looks like it can hold its own. Because the articles I was showing was basically talking about how bad Iran is looking. But really, if you look closely, the U.S. really actually looks weak as well. It looks like Iran's actually putting up a fight, actually doing some damage to against the U.S. and stuff. Like this article right here from Business Insider as well. It says the U.S. fight with Iran is putting new stress on Patriot missile stockpiles already under heavy strain. Tehran retaliated with its own strikes, lobbying missiles into nations supporting U.S. forces. So yeah, Iran attacked back and hit like 15 other nations as well on the second. Yeah, here. On March 2nd, 2026, Iran and its proxies launched retaliatory strikes against Israel and various U.S. military bases in Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and United Arab Emirates, Iraq, and Jordan. Attacks targeted civilian infrastructure, including airports and hotels in Gulf nations, as well as oil facilities. Key details regarding the March 2nd attacks include Gulf countries. Iran targeted all Gulf Cooperation Council nations, including UAE, Saudi Arabia, Oman, and Qatar. Qatar. Iranian aircraft and drones attacked a major gas plant in Qatar, with Qatar reporting it shot down Iranian assets. Saudi Arabia, the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh was targeted by drones, and Aramco oil infrastructure in Ras Tanura was attacked. Bahrain, a drone attack targeted the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet Service Sensors. Cyprus, a British Air Force base was targeted by a drone. In Iraq and Jordan, military bases hosting U.S. forces were targeted in these countries. On the 28th, Iran launched retaliatory strikes against several countries in the Middle East. These strikes primarily targeted Israel and Arab Gulf states hosting U.S. military assets. Israel got hit with ballistic missiles and drones. Explosions reported in Tel Aviv and later in areas near Jerusalem. United Arab Emirates faced the largest volume of fire with 137 ballistic missiles and 209 drones directed at the country. Kuwait. A drone attack targeted Kuwait's airport. Bahrain, the headquarters of the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet in Manama, was targeted by missiles. Drones also hit residential high-rises in Manama. Qatar, Iranian forces targeted the Al Udeid Air Base, which is the largest U.S. base in the region. Saudi Arabia intercepted Iranian projectiles. Explosions were heard in Riyadh, in the country's eastern region. Jordan got hit, successfully intercepted ballistic missiles over its territory. Syria, an Iranian missile struck an industry zone in Huwaida, killing 4 people. Iraq, strikes and interceptions were reported near Erbil International Airport, which hosts U.S.-led coalition troops. And Cyprus, a United Kingdom military base in Cyprus. So yeah, basically, and then you saw the video where Trump was basically surprised because he thought this would only last a couple of days, 4 days to be exact, and then Iran would come to the table to have talks and negotiate peace. But that's not what has happened. Iran's basically pissed off and actually wants to continue in the war, in the beef. So yeah, buddy, we'll see how this goes. And I have Ezekiel 38. So this is Ezekiel 38, verse 2. Son of man, set thy face against Gog. Yeah, the Son of man is us right there. Set thy face against Gog. That's Gog is the fucking Russia and Moscow. The land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and prophesy against them. And say, thus says Yahweh Bashem Sabaoth, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal. I will turn thee back to hooks to thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth in all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company, with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. So basically, Russia's going to come back with Russia right there in verse 4. I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws. That's going into how in the Cold War. In the Cold War, if you look at their territory they had, it was the world's largest country, covering 22.4 million square kilometers. If I show a map, this was the Soviet Union's territory. You can see Ukraine is in there, Poland, which is a NATO nation today. You can see Belarus. Some of Germany is on there. Romania. That was their territory. And then they lost that in 1989. Basically what happened in that time is in 1989, the Soviet Union, or USSR, with Russia as its largest republic, experienced the beginning of the end of the communist rule. Key events include the February withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan, the rise of democratic movements in Eastern Europe, the fall of the Berlin Wall in November, and major economic struggles leading to widespread miners' strikes. Economic crisis, widespread strikes by miners highlighted the failure of the Soviet economic system. And that goes into the Cold War. Yeah, Russia lost the Cold War. And so then when you go back to 2022, the Lord turned Russia back. And I will bring the verse 4. And I will bring thee forth in all thine army, horses and horsemen, and all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even the great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Persia, that's Iraq. So also Tahar also mentioned in one of that first clip there how Russia is gonna have Iran's back. Russia is gonna step in when Iran needs it. Right now, Iran doesn't need it because going into the second clip that I played. So this is a correction to the first video I made because I actually didn't think Russia was trying to help or Iran needed because Iran needed help. That's what I thought. But actually, it's actually the opposite. So I have to correct myself. Hence, I want to make this update. And yeah, I want to make this update basically. Yeah. So going back to the second clip, the brother was showing actually in this little clip he was playing there how Iran hit all these nations pretty hard, and then a couple days after, okay, got some information here I want to share. As of early March 2026, following the start of the coordinated U.S.-Israel strikes on February 28th, Iran has launched multiple waves of retaliatory strikes, including over 40 missiles in a single recent wave. Iran has targeted the U.S. bases in Bahrain, Qatar, and UAE, Kuwait, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia, alongside strikes against Israeli targets. Yeah, on February 28th, Iran launched a massive coordinated attack involving hundreds of missiles and drones targeting U.S. and Israeli interests across the Middle East. Key actions included strikes on 27 bases where U.S. troops were deployed. On February 29th, Iranian-backed forces launched numerous attacks, including over 23 operations with dozens of drones targeting U.S. bases. Additionally, Iran forces launched 174 ballistic missiles and 689 drones at the UAE. And on March 2nd, Iran intensified its retaliation against Israel and U.S. allied nations, launching at least 6 distinct missile barrages at Israel. Additionally, Iran targeted U.S. embassy facilities in Riyadh with drones and hit multiple locations across 10 countries, including energy infrastructure and ports and the Gulf. This was on March 1st. Iran launched a massive coordinated attack across the Gulf region, firing over 165 ballistic missiles, dozens of cruise missiles, and 500 plus drones, resulting in hits on multiple occasions, including Jebel Ali port in Dubai, airports in Dubai and Kuwait. Come on. In March 3rd, as part of its ongoing retaliation during the U.S.-Israeli strikes, Iran continued to target U.S. and allied interests in the Gulf region, with notable actions including drone strikes in the Gulf. At least 2 Iranian drones struck the U.S. embassy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, on March 2nd to the 3rd, causing limited damage. An Iranian drone also struck the port in Salalah and Oman on March 3rd. Missile barrage against Israel. Iran conducted at least 4 to 6 separate ballistic missile barrages targeting Israel between March 2nd and the morning of March 3rd. Overall campaign activity. By March 3rd, Iran has launched over 100 ballistic missiles, dozens of drones, and cruise missiles at regional targets since the conflict began on February 28th. Following U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iran that began on February 28th, 2026, Iran has launched over 2,000 to 2,500 drones and missiles combined in retaliatory strikes across the Middle East. Reports specifically indicate over 500 to 800 drones were targeted at the UAE alone within the first few days of March 2026. So that's all just some numbers, some statistics to give you an idea of how much power Iran has been hitting back with. Following the U.S.-Israel attack started February 28, 2026, Iran has launched over 500 to 588 ballistic missiles and 2,000 plus drones targeting Israel, the UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, and other regional locations. God. So by March 1st, it was around 588 missiles. By now, it's like, yeah, well, it's 588. But yeah, going back to Ezekiel 38. So basically, in the second clip, going back to that, Iran has shown that it doesn't even. Iran's really telling Russia it's good right now. It's got this. It's handling this situation right now against fucking U.S. and fucking Israel. Anyway, this is Ezekiel 38, verse 9. Thou shalt ascend. It was in 5, yeah, Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them, with shield and helmet. Yeah, Persia's Iran, they're with Russia right now. Ethiopia, Libya, those are Hamite nations, African nations. Here in Africa, located in Africa, though they're soon gonna join up with Russia too. And actually, you do have African nations allied with Russia in the BRICS. The S in BRICS is South Africa. Gomor and all his bands, that was Togomar, once again Russia, of the North Quarters and all his bands, and many people with the. There's going to be a large army joined alliances with Russia. Read out prepared and prepare thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee. Russia right now has been preparing. They are already preparing, still preparing, and beat out a guard unto them. After many days thou shalt be visited, in the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword. It's going to go into the literal land of Israel and spiritual Israel over here in America. It's twofold, and it's gathered out of many people against the mountains of Israel, because they're going to shoot missiles over there in the literal land of Israel, and over here in America, the spiritual land of Israel here, which had been always waste, but it is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them, because Russia's gonna be used to shoot missiles when this is during this third war, and as it's happening. Thou shalt ascend and come like a storm. Thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land. Thou and all thy bands and many people with thee. Once again, they're gonna be a large army. 10. Thus says the Yahweh Bashmashai, it shall also come to pass that at the same time shall things come into thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought. That evil thought is that he's going to destroy the elect that's here this land of Israel, spiritual Israel, America. 11, and thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages. I will go up to them that are at rest. That's America here. That dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls and having neither bars nor gates. That's America over here. To take a spoil and to take a prey. To turn thy hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited, and upon the people that are gathered out of the nations which have gotten cattle and goods that dwell in the midst of the land. Sheba and Dedan and the merchants of Tarshish, with all the young lions thereof, shall say unto thee, Art thou come to take a spoil? Hast thou gathered thy company to take a prey, to carry away silver and gold, to take away cattle and goods, to take a great spoil? Yeah, that's Sheba, Dedan. It's going into locations in Israel, the literal land of Israel. It's twofold once again, because Russia's going to help destroy a ton of the land of Israel. Yeah, I even Googled it. Sheba and Dedan and the merchants of Tarshish. Sheba and Dedan, they're saying here, generally identified as nations on the Arabian Peninsula, likely modern-day Saudi Arabia, Yemen, and Oman. And right now, Iran attacked those nations. Merchants of Tarshish, often associated with the Western Mediterranean, particularly Spain, or Phoenician sea traders, symbolizing dominant maritime commerce. So that's what they're saying is Sheba and Dedan, Saudi Arabian nations near the Arabian Peninsula, and yeah. Even here in this map, they have Magog there. That's where in Togarmah. Those are Meshach, Tubal there as well. Those are parts that Russia used to have. Yeah, here's a map of where they say in Tarshish is. That's near Spain. That's NATO. So NATO is mentioned here as well in Ezekiel 38. So Sheba, Dedan, and those places there, those nations there, that's Spain, NATO. Sheba, Dedan, that's nations of the Arabian Peninsula, modern-day Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Oman. These nations are going to be told go with Russia, join with Russia, and say this here. Art thou come to take a spoil? Hast thou gathered thy company to take a prey? So they're going to ask, here this breaks it down. This Ezekiel 38:13, there what we just read right there. It's talk about Tarshish, Sheba, Dedan. They're going to ask God, are you come to take a plunder, take the prey? It says right here, questioning Gog's massive invasion of Israel. Rather than intervening, they ask if God has come to seize plunder. This verse highlights the greedy motives of the invaders, the passive materialistic response of the surrounding nations, and sets up God's divine intervention to defend Israel. Sheba Dedan, likely representing Arabian regions, and Tarshish, often associated with Western maritime trading powers, as NATO, are portrayed as bystanders. Motive: the inquiry highlights that Gog's invasion is driven by greed and the desire to take great spoil, gold, silver, and livestock from a peaceful, unsuspecting Israel. Yeah, it's twofold once again. This verse specifically, though, as well, it's going into how they're going to destroy the land of Israel, the small hats over there. And these nations that it just mentioned there, that right now ain't allied with Russia, are going to want to join Russia so they can have a hand in taking spoils. These nations, passive response, these nations do not threaten to stop Gog, but rather seem to watch from the sidelines, highlighting a lack of international resolve to protect Israel. Context of judgment. The verse emphasizes that while the world watches, God is preparing to intervene in the conflict to make himself known to all nations. And that right there is going him saving the actual true Israelites. Once again, because it's twofold. It's also, there's whether they destroy Israel before or afterwards, after the elect is delivered, we'll have to see. But it's both twofold either way, because they're also going to shoot missiles here in America. And this is where spiritual Israel is, because it's Israel as a people before it's placed. Most of the Israelites it's going to be delivered is here in America. And either way, they're going to help. They're going to be fucking up Israel just before Yahushua returns, though, as well. Israel, the literal land over there, Israel. And those calling themselves, that army calling themselves the land of Israel over there. They're going to fuck them up. But eventually, when Yahushua comes back, the battle of Armageddon will happen. They will have come to peace treaties, whatever's left of their army, and decide to come and attack Yahushua. It says to take a great spoil. Therefore, Son of Man, prophesy and say unto Gog, thus says Yahweh Bashem Yashai, in that day when my people Israel dwelleth safely. And that's how you know it's twofold, because right here in verse 14 it says, when my people of Israel dwelleth safely, shalt thou not know it? And thou shalt come from the place out of the north parts. That's north of is the literal land of Israel geographically. What would be north of that? Russia, the Soviet Union, what it used to be in its smaller glory. Russia today. The north parts, that's Russia once again. Hey. And many people with thee, all of them riding upon horses, a great company, and a mighty army. And thou shalt come up against my people of Israel as a cloud to cover the land. It's going into the helicopters, the army, the missiles that they're going to be having and shooting here in America before and during Yahushua returns. It shall be in the latter days, and I will bring thee against my land. And we're soon coming into that time where the Lord brings them against his land. That the heathen may know me when I shall be sanctified in thee, O God, before their eyes. 17, thus says Yahweh Bashem Shai, art thou he of whom I have spoken in old time by my servants the prophets of Israel, which prophesied in those days many years that I would bring thee against them. Spoken in old time by my servants the prophets of Israel, which prophesied in those days many years, that I would bring thee against them, because we've been prophesying this for years now. And it shall come to pass the time, and because this was written long ago, this was Ezekiel back in his time. And also on top of that, Yahweh Shai and then his apostles was preaching this back in their time. That's why it says of old time. It says in 18, and it shall come to pass at the same time when Gog shall come against the land of Israel, says the Lord Yahweh, that my fury shall come up in my face. That's the nuclear destruction. For in my jealousy and in the fire of my wrath have I spoken, surely in that day there shall be a great shaking in the land of Israel. That's this land here, America, because this belonged to Israel as well. That's Gad and the literal land of Israel over there. It's 20, so that the fishes of the sea and the fowls of the heaven and the beasts of the field and all the creeping things that creep upon the earth and all the men that are upon the face of the earth shall shake at my presence, and the mountains shall be thrown down. Mountains are kingdoms, that's metaphorical there, and the steep places shall fall, and every wall shall fall to the ground, and that's literal as well. Well, 21, and I will call for a sword against him throughout all my mountains, says the Lord. Yahweh Bashmi outside. The sword is the Lord's judgment, destruction on Russia. Every man's sword shall be against his brother, and I will plead against him with pestilence and with blood, and I will rain upon him that spiritual powers of the elect that's going to be showing those spiritual powers when they go up against the literal army of Russia to be doing these, like you see in movies. Avatar is an example of floods. You can make a hole on the ground. This brother might make a hole on the ground and make him fall into it. This brother may have power over the elements, make a whole bunch of floods of water fall on their army, this section of this army. This is what this is describing here. And upon his bands and upon many people that are with him. And over rain and flood and great hailstorms, the brother might have will have spirit. A brother not might, but will have spiritual powers. This is what this is going into. Because the Lord ain't just gonna do this himself. It's gonna be a face-to-face, one-on-one battle. The 144,000 against the army of Russia and whatever is left of the other nations, and they're gonna have a face-off. And obviously they're not gonna win because you're coming with guns and it's something that a man made, but the elect is gonna be coming with spiritual powers that's above, way beyond your comprehension. So it's like basically trying to come up against Superman with an army of regular humans with guns. That's not gonna do anything, buddy. It's not gonna do anything. You 2/3 niggas and Edomites. You're sadly mistaken. You're not gonna win anything on it. It's no competition. You're not gonna win. You're gonna lose. Your hopes here and your scoffing here is gonna come to an end. Anyway, it says every man's sword shall be against his brother, and every man's sword against his brother. That's gonna be spiritual powers to have your army be killing each other too, because you have an account of that in the it's in 2 Chronicles 20 to 37. In the Bible, God causes Israel's enemies to destroy themselves, notably in 2 Chronicles 20. And that's spiritual power. That's hypnotism, to hypnotize somebody and tell them to do something, and then they do it when it's out their control. or an allied army of Ammonites, Moabites, and Mount Seir inhabitants, those are Edomites, attacking Judah, turns on itself as King Jehoshaphat's choir sings praises the Lord, and that's also why they call it that's why the Lord calls it the Valley of Jehoshaphat. That's Hebrew for Jehoshaphat, which means God shall judge. Also called Armageddon, Armageddon, mountain of troops. The Lord confuses the enemy, causing them to fight each other until none escape. 2 Chronicles 20, 22 to 23. Also with Gideon in Judges 7:22, during Gideon's battle, the Lord caused the men of Midian to turn their swords against each other throughout the camp. Also in 1 Samuel 14 and 20, Jonathan versus Philistines, the Lord brought confusion upon the Philistine army, causing them to fight one another. Yeah, that's called hypnotism, mind control. I think it was a certain character in X-Men that had that power. And now I read some of the accounts. 2 Chronicles 20, 20 to 37. You can go read the other ones yourself. I already got them for you where you could get them. Anyway, this is the subheading for this one. Enemies destroy themselves. They rose early in the morning and went out to the wilderness in Tekoa. And when they went out, Jehoshaphat stood and said, "Listen to me, Judah, and inhabitants of Jerusalem. Put your trust in the Lord your God, and you will endure. Put your trust in his prophets and succeed." 21. When he had consulted with the people, he appointed those who sang to the Lord and those who praised him in holy attire as they went out before the army and said, "Give thanks to the Lord, for his faithfulness is everlasting." 22. When they began singing and praising the Lord set ambushes against the sons of Ammon, Moab, and Mount Seir. That's China, Japan, and the Americans, who had come against Judah, so they were struck down. 23. For the sons of Ammon and Moab rose up against the inhabitants of Mount Seir, completely destroying them. And when they had finished with the inhabitants of Seir, they tried to destroy one another. So like it says right there, going back to Ezekiel, this has happened before. So when that time comes, we already know that the elect is going to have spiritual powers, whoever they are, Lord willing, or maybe me, maybe not me, whatever. They're going to have spiritual powers to be able to do these things. You also have an account of the Lord making water turn blood. In 2 Kings, the 3rd chapter here, he made this water turn blood so that this army here of Moab could think that they would kill each other. And the Lord basically made this water that he made turn blood run down the mountain to make them think that the Israelites killed each other. And then they rushed up there to try to get the spoil. It says in 2 Kings 3rd chapter, '21. I'll jump to the point in 22. When they got up early in the morning, the sun was shining on the water. Yeah, because it was water. When you go back up, 17. For this is what the Lord says: You will see neither wind nor rain, yet this valley will be filled with water, and you, your cattle, and your other animals will drink. 18. This is an easy thing in the eyes of Yahweh. He will also deliver Moab into your hands. You will overthrow every fortified city. Alright, I'm going to jump down to 20. The next morning, about the time for offering the sacrifice, there it was, water flowing from the direction of Edom, and the land was filled with water. So this was just water, but the Lord turned it to blood. Going back to, reminds me of Exodus, the Lord turned the river to blood. And that was spiritual power. The Lord brought plagues of frogs. So in that time, it's saying there in Ezekiel, Let me finish here in 2 Kings 3, verse 22. When they got up early in the morning, the sun was shining on the water to the Moabites across the way, but the water looked red like blood. That 23, that's blood, they said. Those kings must have fought each other and slaughtered each other now to the plunder Moab. But when the Moabites came to the camp of Israel, the Israelites rose up and fought them until they fled, and the Israelites invaded the land and slaughtered the Moabites. So when you go back to Ezekiel 38 up here, and I will call for a sword against him throughout all my mountains, says the Lord. Every man's sword shall be against his brother. So like it said in that account. And we know the elect once again is gonna have spiritual bodies. They're gonna you can't be lifted up in the Lord's chariot. That's what Paul spoke on. That's what Paul speaks about. The incorruptible can't inhabit the corruptible can't inhabit the incorruptible. Meaning this weak ass body can't just get up there and receive a God-like body that's perfect in just a regular human mortal body that corrupts, that dies, basically. These bodies die every day. In the kingdom of heaven, we ain't gonna die. And not only that, but the Lord is gonna make us perfect. And not just that, but the Lord is gonna give us the power over elements. Even after that battle is finished, we're gonna have the power to have telekinesis. If we don't want to pick anything up ever, we're gonna use our minds to pick it up. If we want to drink a cup of water, a cup of juice, whatever it is, we ain't gonna have to use our hands. So the Lord's gonna give us that power too. Okay, because it doesn't say in the scriptures you're gonna have power to. Well, it does say it in the scriptures. You just gotta add them together. If Samson had powers, if Samson killed 1,000 men for jawbone of an ass, he couldn't have done that while getting tired. And honestly, already you can tap into that power already. Not on that level, but you could tap into, certain people can tap into that power already. Because this body is actually, it isn't limited to just regular normal things, regular normal abilities. This body here, actually, the brain can actually access tons of information. So it's just an example, once again, just to give you an idea. Once again, just a refresher to brothers. We already know this. We've learned the scriptures, we studied the scriptures, we know all the accounts in the book we can bring out. Okay, Yahweh Shai himself walked through the crowd of people that wanted to stone him. That was spiritual powers right there. And then when he came back as Yahweh Shai, when he died, he had spiritual powers because he still came back in that same body that was already dying. And that's the bodies that the angels had, basically. So we're going to have bodies like the angels. The angels, because the angels, they can come and go. And they can come and go and leave out this realm we're in right now, this earth. Us humans are in right now. So an angel, you can't kill an angel. So common sense tells you. And I'm describing this to an Edomite, a heathen. That's why I'm describing it how I'm describing it. it's not hard to but to someone listening and scoffing, bugging out, whatever the fuck. It's not hard to fucking tell that what the Lord is gonna give these men. These elect men. This is what the Lord is gonna give the elect men. These elect men. He's gonna give these elect men these fucking powers, man. And your army is gonna be defeated. If I'm part of it, I'm a part of it. That's fine. At the end of the day, bro, even if I get destroyed, I'll still come back in as an Israelite. And the point is that this bitch gets destroyed. So I'm happy anyway. I win either way. Ezekiel 38, verse 21. And anyway, listen to this. And I will call for a sword against him throughout all my mountains, says the Lord Yahweh, Shemashai of hosts. Every man's sword shall be against his brother. 22. And I will plead against him with pestilence and with blood. And I will plead against him with pestilence, that's plagues, disease. One brother's or a couple of brothers are gonna be using that power, superpower, to put diseases on the Russian armies, Afghan army, East Indian, Elamite armies, and with blood. Certain brothers are gonna use their spiritual power to dump floods of waters, dump floods of blood on this whole group of this army. That's what it's describing here. What else would it be describing here? And I will rain upon him. Yeah, I know I'm not crazy. And upon his bands, certain brothers are gonna use the spiritual powers to rain heavy ass rains on this army. While over here on this side, it's blood being dropped all on their ass, like basically like Doctor Strange type of powers what you saw in Doctor Strange, his type of shit that he did. One brother might have a power that's not even mentioned on here to fall into a portal and come back, and fall into a portal and come back, or have you open this door, but then you come back, but then you still try to go through that door, and you're just going through it and going through it. You're still opening the door, and then walking out, looking confused, but I can see you there, and everyone can see you there, but in your minds, you're hallucinating because of that spiritual power, heavy power, and you're still trying to open doors and going out, going in, going out, going in, going out, going in, all that type of stuff. Things of this sort of playing on today. And in this one, it says here, this one. And upon the many people that are with him, an overflowing rain, and great hailstorms, fire, and brimstone. Some brothers will have powers that they're going to use to throw fire at you, or rain brimstone, rain fire liquid on you. Certain brothers are going to have even deeper powers, more complex powers, and do all those things at once. 23, listen to this. Thus will I magnify myself and sanctify myself, and I will be known in the eyes of many nations, and they shall know that I am the Yahweh. Yeah, and that's what these nations have tried to copy. That's only one Lord, only one name, one baptism, that Yahweh Bashem Messiah. That's right here. That's why I magnify myself and sanctify myself, and I will be known in the eyes of many nations, and they shall know that I am the Yahweh. Yep. And only, yeah. And then after that, that's when all the nations are going to know there's only one power, Yahweh Bashem Messiah. And they're going to know who Yahweh Bashem Messiah is. So, kind of with that, I mean, that's really the point. I'm actually going to finish Second Chronicles 20. 23. For the sons of Ammon and Moab rose up against the inhabitants of Mount Seir, completely destroying them, and when they had finished with the inhabitants of Seir, they helped to destroy one another. When Judah came to the watchtower of the wilderness, they turned toward the multitude, and behold, there were corpses lying on the ground, and there was no survivor. So so basically, Moab. I'm commenting now. Moab, Ammon, Mount Seir. They basically destroyed each other until none of them was left. When Jehoshaphat and his people came to take their spoils, they found much among them, including goods, garments, and valuable things, which they took for themselves, more than they could carry, and they were taking the spoils for 3 days because there was so much. Triumphant return to Jerusalem, verse 26. Then on the 4th day they assembled in the valley of Barakah, for they blessed the Lord there. Therefore they had named that place the valley of Barakah until today. Valley of blessing, Barakah. 27. Every man of Judah and Jerusalem returned with Jehoshaphat at their. So once again, that's why the place was called Jehoshaphat. That's why in Joel 2, that also referencing the future battle, the battle of Armageddon. In that chapter, calls it Jehoshaphat. That's why he called. That's what it goes back to. At their head, returning to Jerusalem with joy, for the Lord Yahweh had helped them to rejoice over their enemies. 28. They came to Jerusalem with harps, lyres, and trumpets to the house of the Yahweh. And the dread of Yahweh was on all the kingdoms of the lands when they heard that the Yahweh had fought against the enemies of Israel. So the kingdom of Jehoshaphat was at peace, for his God gave him rest on all sides. Just like after that battle, we're going to have rest on all sides. And all the nations, it says right there, once again, they're going to know Yahweh B'Shem Mashai. They're going to fear Yahweh B'Shem Mashai. Because once again, 29, I'm going to repeat that again. It said, and the dread of Yahweh B'Shem Mashai was on all the kingdoms of the lands when they heard that the Lord had fought against the enemies of Israel. And that reminds me also of the Red Sea. After Pharaoh and his chariots got drowned, his army got drowned. Once that happened, all the nations heard of it and they feared the Lord. Hence why when they went to Jericho, that prostitute told one of the spies, "We heard of what the Lord did for y'all, and we are at fear." Roughly paraphrasing. This one's gonna be even better. So the kingdom of Jehoshaphat was at peace, for his God gave him rest on all sides. 31. Now Jehoshaphat reigned over Judah. He was alright, and that's the point. So with that, that's the point of that Shalom and blah blah blah. Lord willing, this was edification.